Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today we're joined by Paul-Olivier Raynaud-Lacroze. Paul is the Senior Vice President of HR Access Solutions, EMEA at Dormakaba. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Chris. And yourself?
I'm good. So from now on, I think we'll call you PO for the rest of the show to make it a bit easier. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's how my colleagues call me, so that's fine.
Perfect. Well, PO, let our listeners know a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
Okay. So I'm French, as my accent probably gives it away. And so living in Paris at the moment. And actually, I didn't start in HR. So I'm a chemist originally. So I studied chemistry and I joined Unilever. I know that you're in touch with them at the moment. And my very first company was Unilever because I studied chemistry both in France and in the UK. And I had met them, when they were doing the tour of universities. I liked the people there. And then I applied and I started in Unilever, then in R&D. Developing shampoos and deodorants, this type of stuff. And I did that for 8 years, so in France, in the UK, in Russia, in Thailand, moving towards more and more innovation, marketing, and management. And then I left Unilever, I did an MBA in France at INSEAD. And from there, I started again to work for another British company, which is famous in the UK by the brand Autoglass.
Yep, very well.
And Carglass outside the UK. So quite, the world leader in windscreen repair and replacement, so a service company. And there I did first group strategy work, and then I moved to HR. So I created the group HR role. And that's how I started in HR, which was not planned. Whenever we talk about career path and, you should think about 10 years ahead. All my life, it was more opportunity.
How does a chemist end up in HR?
Exactly.
That's going to be the title of my episode for this. So what happened in that role that led you into the HR function?
Because when I was doing group strategy and group development, we were acquiring a lot of small companies in emerging markets for, let's say, Autoglass. And a lot of these small companies, all their issues were people related because it's people intensive business. So how do I recruit a technician? How do I give a bonus to a sales guy? How do I train on windscreens? And I was one of the few guys they knew at the center. So they were all coming to me with all these HR questions, and I had no clue. So I was asking the various HR directors in the countries, and they were all coming back with various tools and ideas, but it was extremely decentralized. So there was no one size fits all, no harmonized best practice. So after a few years, I had amassed quite a lot of network within the HR community and material. And the CEO decided to change the way he was structuring his board. My boss left, and he said to us, "Well, guys, in strategy, there is no more team for you. You have to find another job." And I said, "Well, actually, this HR stuff. Everybody's repeating, the same. There is no best practice. So I'd like to create a kind of global HR coordination role," which after some discussion I did. And I told the HR guys, "Look, guys, I don't know anything about HR, but I can manage projects globally. So if you accept me, I'm quite happy to help put all of it together." And that's how I started the journey. And, for 3 years, I really enjoy that. We scan, what are our needs? Where are we strong or not? So if we are strong, let's take what exists and we will put it everywhere. If we are not, let's create it from scratch. And it was quite exciting. And then I became the HR director for Carglass in France, which was like the largest subsidiary at that time. And that's where I learned the ropes of a generalist HR director, including with the unions, labor law, all of that I had never touched.
So you learned all of that on the job?
On the job. With a
in my head, I was thinking, how did you manage your personal development throughout this?
Yeah.
Was it just really learning through experience, really?
Experience on job and with strong teams. I must say, in France, I had a very strong team and they really helped me a lot. So I knew quite a bit from this group work around recruitment, training, leadership development, but the more administrative, legal things I had no clue about. And, they really helped me. And actually, I struck very good relationship with the union. So in a sense, it was not like difficult. It was, of course, sometimes tense, but, I just learned by doing.
But that comes down to who you are, though. It's clearly built in you that you're excited about that new challenge. You know, you know, it's not easy, and you've chose to jump straight in the deep end, right?
Yeah,
And learn.
I suppose when it's new, it excites me. When you have to build something, you know, it's where I get the
Yeah.
excitement, and you have to challenge yourself indeed. So the first year is terrible. It's like when you
What have I done?
first year is terrible, but then you survive.
Yeah. Well, that's a testament to you, Pierre, because most people don't have that built in them. You know, most people, you know, they see discomfort and they go the other direction.
Yeah,
Whereas I'm kind of like you, where I love to learn and it's difficult, but that's also what makes it challenging and exciting at the same time, right?
exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. When it's a challenge, I go to it.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So where we are now with Dormakaba, what is the biggest sort of challenge that you're facing in the organization?
Yeah, so Dormakaba. So then I joined Dormakaba after, let's say, Autoglass Carglass. That's 5 years ago. And at that time, it was called Dorma because it was a German company. And we merged with Kaba, so to become Dormakaba 3 years
That
ago.
worked out well with the name, didn't it? Sounds quite
Yeah,
good.
so, Dormakaba, a lot of A's in the name. And then, so we are a Swiss company listed in a Swiss stock market. And now for 3 years, we have been merging the two big companies. I mean, they were 1 billion euro each, perhaps 10,000 employees each, so very similar in size, but of course, slightly different cultures, which is normal. And so for the last 3 years, it has really been in terms, the challenge has been in terms of, creating the new culture, engaging the people in this new company, in this new journey. And to do that, it has been around developing the managers, really. Neither of the two companies had done much in terms of management training, except perhaps for the very senior managers. So it's really embarking, all the management lines in terms of their own development, where we want to go, so the whole company goes in the same direction.
So what does that development look like? Because I hear this obviously for many organizations that are going through transformation in terms of supporting and developing their leaders through it. What does that mean for you guys? What did you do specifically with those managers and with those leaders to help them?
Yeah, so we've developed some, I would say, pretty standard training courses. So, for, let's say, junior, frontline managers, kind of middle ones, senior ones. But I think where we have perhaps started to do things which are a bit more specific, I'm not saying unique, I'm not going to say that we are the only ones, are to create some training courses for, let's say, specific situations. For instance, a lot, we are in a matrix environment. So a lot of my managers manage teams which are across the world, across even perhaps sometimes different teams. So we have developed training courses for how do you develop teams, in a multicultural virtual environment through Skype, basically, because perhaps once a year, but most of the time you'll be managing your team through Skype, through the phone, through email. So, what are the specific role of a manager? What are the key behavior you need to have compared to a standard situation where your team is next door to you, and every day, if you want, you can, meet them all and have team meetings. What I think is also extremely important is that my managers realize how well or bad they act as managers. So what do they use as leadership behavior? So we have put in place some tools which are kind of, reverse performance, so the team or the peers give you feedback on how well or again bad you are as a manager. So, what are your strengths and weaknesses and what are the good qualities you have or the areas where you should do less of a bad behavior. And that is accompanied by coaching, because it's easy to tell someone, well, you are too aggressive or you are too passive or you are too competitive, or perhaps you are, I don't know, extremely visionary, which is better. But then what do you do with it? It's okay. But if I am 55, I've done that for 30 years, how do I change suddenly what I need to change? So I accompany this feedback also by coaching, which we give either inside the company, or I'm doing a pilot now with digital coaching. So exactly in the same setting as we are today, coaching through Skype, with a coach who could be sitting on the other side of the world, but coaching you, through Skype. So that I put a lot of emphasis then on personal development, let's say, of my managers.
Fantastic. And I think it's great that you're making it more specific to this current day and age and time that we live in as well, making it very, as opposed to sort of very generic training around that.
Classroom training for me, it's okay when you start. I mean, as a manager, and because of course you need to learn the ropes and the basics. I think as you age and you have been through a lot of different situations, I agree. Specific, tailor-made, let's say, personal development is much more powerful than if I put you 3 days in a classroom. And then, are you going to change when you are?
No, not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
So I move much more to this individual coaching and feedback.
So what's the mixture of people developing it in terms of the training? Who's delivering this? What's the mixture of internal and external trainers that you're bringing in?
It's a mixture. I mean, we tend to develop our material with external providers, who are expert in the field of talent management. In terms of delivery, I would say it's still 80% outside, and perhaps only 20% perhaps we do ourselves or we deliver ourselves. One of the reasons, to be honest, is lack of internal resource. I don't have so many people who are, because it's a skill, of course, also to train. So I don't have so many people with this skill or the time to do it on a EMEA, where perhaps 30 countries, so let's say on a EMEA basis, which is quite time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
However, the leadership feedback and the first step coaching, I would say, is done by us internally, by the HR team. And the more advanced coaching, yes, then we go for professional coaches.
Yeah. So how did you go about looking for external companies? Because there's so many options and so many companies out there. What, just for everyone listening, what approach did you take to try and find the best companies to work with? Because it's very difficult.
I mean, it was a bit, who we had worked with. I mean, with a few of my team, who we had worked with in the past in other companies, and that we felt comfortable with. And then it was a matter of me and my learning and development manager to interview them and see how they were fitting our culture, our behavior. I mean, what we wanted to achieve. So, I mean, not rocket science. It was more using our network, and then have a more like, it was a kind of beauty contest. Not at all on the price. It was more on the fit.
Yeah. So during this process, what roadblocks did you encounter during the acquisition?
The big one, I think, were the uncertainty at the beginning, where you change, of course, the organization. So people basically have 2 or 3 questions immediately in their head. Do I keep my job or not?
Yeah.
If I do, who is my new boss?
Do I like new boss?
Yeah. And what is my job? I mean, even if I stay, okay, and then I have the name of my boss, and what am I supposed to do? And of course, for many people, it was not of the 3 answers where like nothing changes. Probably, I mean, of course, some people were left, but even for the one who stayed, they had a change of boss or even role or team, So I think the very first roadblock was to try as soon as possible to set what would be the ideal organization and to communicate a lot to the people, reassure them that it was not a merger where the goal was to cut, 50% of the workforce and get enormous synergies. It was really complementary companies. It was more around growing the business, entering new markets, having new products in new markets. So in this sense, it was not, a bloodbath. But still, we had to tranquilize the people very quickly. And then starting to, after perhaps 6 months, 1 year, give the vision where we wanted to go. And I say 6 months, 1 year, because the company was really made that not one of the 2 companies dominate the other. So we had to recreate the new culture, the new company from scratch. So that took a bit of time. And as soon as that was decided, do a very big exercise of communicating the vision, the strategies, the main pillars of our company, that everybody could understand where they were supposed to do.
Immediately, people just jump to the conclusion of, am I going to lose my job? Who's my manager, etc. How did you support and manage that, throughout this? Because it's very important, and so many companies, it can be, catastrophic.
Yeah.
So they can lose talent. The culture. How did you communicate that? What kind of different methods do you use?
I think the main one we used, I say we, it was, let's say the senior management team and then the HR team. Very quickly, I told my new boss, actually, because I changed boss and during the process, that I needed to set the HR team very fast, because that was one of the team which had to support then the rest of the organization. So very quickly I decided, who stays and who does what. And what we did then was really communicating, but I would say face to face. So it was a lot of traveling, town hall meetings, individual discussions. Of course, to be honest, we had identified also, the key talents we didn't want to lose because, they had key positions, key knowledge. So we focused also on a one-to-one with these guys. Say, look, don't worry, perhaps we cannot tell you exactly what is your role tomorrow, but there is a role for you and it will not be completely different from what you do. So it was a lot of, I would say, physical communication in this sense. So by the people able to talk to us, touch us if they wanted, and ask directly the questions. Of course, that was accompanied by the usual, mails and newsletters and webinars, etc. But we felt that the human touch was very important.
Very important. I completely agree with you.
The first year, between my colleagues, myself, and my team, and of course, not only my team, but all the senior managers, it was really being on the road and talk. And even after 3 years, sometimes you have the CEO, he goes to one of our countries and he says, well, I don't understand. People ask me questions. I thought you had answered them already. And we have, but people still want to listen to the same, to have the answer of the same questions, just to make sure we are consistent.
Yeah, you got to constantly keep, the same message being delivered over and over again, because it's not the first time may not impact everyone. There'll be the people, you know how it is, right? You have the early adopters, which are like, and then you get those guys in the middle, and then you get people that perhaps will never really come around. So it's
and of course, when you are still wondering, well, who is my boss? Okay, you can have the top guy coming to explain to you the vision, but you listen back to only 5% because you still have the question, who is my boss? Then when you know, okay, then perhaps you're a bit more open to have a bit more information. So
I think it's very important that you point that you made, and for everyone listening, there is no quick way of doing this. And like Paul-Olivier just said, most companies that I know that have done this successfully, they literally get out the office for months. They could be up to 6 months to a year, and actually getting in front of everyone face to face and having those conversations one-on-one, because every single person will have a different set of requirements, a different set of questions that you have that they need to be answered, and you can't do that over a virtually or a newsletter or a company announcement. That's not enough.
No, it's not enough. We are social animals at the end of the day. So I think we trust more when you see the other person, you can look at him or her in the eyes, the body language, and then do I trust him or her or not? And of course, we have to, we had to be consistent. And also, I think by going there is to show that you are not afraid. I mean, it's easy to protect yourself behind an email.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't ask me the tough questions,
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't care about having difficult questions. And sometimes you even have to say, sorry, I don't know, or perhaps I cannot even give you the answer right now because we are not ready yet. And okay, people may not, like it or not, but at least you have to be honest and say where you are, and I think it worked quite well. We had a few, of course, turnover of people at the beginning, perhaps the first 6 months, and some unfortunate because in a sense they didn't give us or give the company a chance to show that we are not lying, so to speak, or telling lies. But then, of course, it started to be much better. When things started to settle down, we still had to continue communicating a lot. But then it was not so much about tranquilizing the people. It was more to say, okay, where are we going now? What are the big strategies? What are we going to do?
Is this the first time that you've gone through this process as a HR leader? Is this the first time that you've led an acquisition?
Yeah, I've led acquisition in previous companies, but they were much smaller scale where we were buying smaller companies and there was no difficulty in terms of culture. It was our processes, our culture.
Sure. So you never have to really
leave it, for the two companies, it has been a change. So it's not like one bought the other and at least 50% of the people are okay. Here it was 100% of the people for whom it was news. And new processes, new tools, new culture, so it was interesting.
What were the key lessons that you took away from it personally?
So as we said, I think you have to have the courage to go there physically, confront the difficult discussions, and not being afraid of saying the truth, even when you don't know. Communicating is never enough, and you have to do it through all means, because even if we said, we have to be there, but some people like to read or they like to reflect after a while. So newsletter, emails are also important because people can refer to them, after 3 weeks if they want to. And I think it has been around from the very beginning, and my boss is quite amazing for that. He's extremely consistent in his behavior. So he does what he says what he does. And so that was one of his motto. Another motto is set expectations, meet expectations. So you have to be very transparent in where you are going, and then you have to go there and explain how, and
and stick to it.
It's really around being honest, authentic leader throughout the organization. That's what we try to do.
Is there anything that you think you would have done differently, looking back?
We should have gone even quicker. Sometime, we took some time to define some bits of the organization. We are not so clear for some areas of the business, and should this function belong to that group or there, and in a sense that for perhaps 15-20% of the people, we were a bit late because it was not so easy to define what we should have done. I think we should have been quicker, even if then we changed perhaps 2 years later. But at least sometimes I feel that we let some people still in the dark for too long. And that cost us in terms of people buying less, perhaps some more turnover. And yes.
So all of that being said, then for leaders that are going to be going through this transformation in their own organizations, what's the one thing that you think they should pay the most attention to then?
I think it's really try to have a pulse of the culture of where people are. So of course you have to use, as HR, we tend to have antennas, and with our teams. And it's really to have constant dialogue with your senior leaders, with your HR colleagues, to get as much feedback as possible of where the situation can become hot or not. So and then you have to act quickly. So you have to go to the country, you have to go to this, or send someone again, to explain, to understand what's going on. So I think it's really a constant attention, even to details in terms of what is the pulse, what are the weak signals are. The weak signals, I think, are very important in this type of situation where everything is moving.
And how far are you into? Obviously, you're still going through this right now, or how far are you? How long ago did this happen? Just have you taken any surveys?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago, we started the journey. We did a survey early in the year, so January, February 2018. So we got the results perhaps just before the summer. Not amazingly great, I must admit. Not bad, but not amazingly great. And of course, now we are working on fixing what needs to be improved. In terms of the merger itself, we are 90% there. The big remaining part are all the IT platforms, IT software that we need to consolidate.
Integrate takes a lot longer, yeah.
That takes a lot of time, and I'm not saying that it's painless, as we know, it's a bit painful.
Yeah, it's really hard bringing the systems and processes of two different companies together.
Yeah. And then you find out that you don't have the right data, or the data is not complete, and people are not used perhaps to have the same software. So that is still a bit painful. I would say that the big remaining chunk, the rest is more or less done. But of course, by itself, these huge IT projects are quite a lot of change.
Yeah, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother story and a whole nother transformation to go through as well.
So hopefully 2021, so it will be in total 5 or 6 years. We'll have our, I would say, IT platforms everywhere. But 5-6 years, so it's a big time.
Yeah. Is this a lot more work for you and the team, having to do 2 separate reports, or try to grab 2 different data sets from from different organizations and bring that together, right? Yes, it's a lot of manual work, I can imagine.
Manual work, and sometimes you have 2 people doing the same job in the same office, and if they come from Dorma, if they come from Kaba, they don't use the same system. They can't even if one is on holidays. So it's a bit crazy.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, going back to the survey, were there any big surprise? What was the biggest takeaway that you had from the survey in terms of the people's feedback? What was anything that surprised you? Or
we talked at the beginning of the discussion about the importance of communication and the fact that we did a lot, and still the feedback was that we didn't communicate enough. And then you say, well, I spent 50% of my time in some form of communication, and still the feedback was, well, that was not so clear, or we still don't know this, and you should communicate more. And And
It's
that's
good.
why
It's important for you to hear. It's important for everyone listening to this episode right now to hear that, because we always assume that we're doing enough, but we're not.
yeah, we are not. And of course, if I talk about the most senior line, of course, they are engaged quite early on. As we said, they tend to be early adopters because they are part of the change, they shape it. And of course, naturally, and I'm not saying it's good, I tend to talk more to quite senior people.
Of course. And
Yes,
you're like, oh, they're all engaged.
everyone is happy.
Yeah.
They know where we go.
You've got to go and ask the guy on the front line,
Exactly.
right down the bottom, right, the guy on the front line, the guys facing your customers, ask those guys. That's where you get your pulse.
Exactly.
And understand what the real.
Our service technician is the north of Scotland. Is he really engaged? Is he really clear? Well, and of course, they are very difficult to reach sometimes because we have people all over the place and they don't always come to an office every day or every week even. But that's the feedback that we get, and so we are still working, as we said, earlier. I'm thinking about podcasts, about new ways of reaching out to these guys. They don't like to read, or perhaps it's not so easy for them. So it's a constant effort and constant think in my mind.
Well, thank you so much for that, Pierre. That was really interesting and a lot of great advice, and I'm sure everyone listening is going to take a lot away from that. So I really appreciate that. That leads us quite nicely onto our quickfire round, where I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready? Pressure's on. What was the number one thing that was holding you back personally from becoming a senior HR leader?
I think it was actually lack of confidence. Some people don't see that today. They're still surprised when I say that, but I think it was lack of confidence also because, as I said, I was not always in HR. And at the beginning, it's like, well, am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to open my mouth too much? Which I'm sure I still do. Because in HR, we tend to be cautious. Or if I say something, oh my God, how it can be interpreted. But because you see that nobody's going to die actually, and that you are okay.
I think we all face that at some point in our careers. That's the same as me when I first became a manager of the team. I had exactly the same feeling as well. So I think everyone can relate to you on that one. It's only normal. It's only natural, right?
Yeah.
What would you have said to yourself looking back?
In the big scheme of things, it's not going to break or make the company. So speak up and be confident. You can do it. And of course, after a while, when you start changing job regularly, then of course you become more confident in your ability to adapt.
You have to realize as well, everyone, that you have to fail forward. You have to make mistakes in order to learn. That's just part of it. It's actually the more mistakes you're making in some cases actually means you are progressing. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not challenging yourself. For me, the word failure is not a negative word. It's something exciting and something I need to do more of. What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Listen more.
Simple one. Yeah, but it's important.
I tend to be, enthusiastic. I speak a lot. When people start their sentence, I tend to complete them. And sometimes people, listen to me. Perhaps it's not exactly what I wanted to say. So one of my bosses, he said to me, he was a British guy, a great coach actually. Listen more, Pio. Listen more before you jump.
I think my team would say the same thing about me. Could you share one internet resource that you use to increase your productivity or learn or stay up to date with current events?
I use LinkedIn quite a lot. Of course, for networking, but also I find a lot of very good articles. I'm not only interested in HR topics. Actually, my big dream in my next life would be to become an economist. So I read also a lot about economics and the world affairs and geopolitics, all of that. And I find LinkedIn, there is no rubbish. I suppose because people have to present themselves in a professional way, you don't have the stupid, silly videos or articles. So I don't mean that I read everything, but I find a lot of interesting articles on LinkedIn.
So you first is going to be chemist, HR leader, economics.
Economics.
Interesting.
After my retirement, I'd like to do a PhD in economics. My wife thinks I'm crazy.
You're not slowing down, are you?
Perhaps when I reach that age, I will.
Maybe. What's one book that you'd recommend to our audience and why? Doesn't have to be HR related.
Because I'm French, I suppose it's Saint-Exupéry, The Little Prince, Le Petit Prince, where you have a lot of great wisdom about human nature and how to treat the others and how to accept difference.
They made a movie about that, right?
Yeah, I think
I
so.
think I've seen
Movies
the
and
movie.
cartoons, and yeah, so I recommend it. It's not difficult to read.
Hmm.
Saint-Exupéry was really a humanist, and I think it's still you can read it at all ages. When you're a kid, it's like a nice tale, and it's
Hmm.
very nice. And when you read it again as an adult, you see a lot of different meanings. It's a very rich book.
So what's the main thing that you took away from the book?
It's about respecting the others, even if they are different from you.
Fantastic. Oh,
Totally
perfect. That's a
different.
great book for everyone should read that then.
Mm.
As well. What's one thing about your business where you are right now that you're most excited about?
I think it is this huge potential for growth we are having. I mean, we are more or less number 2, number 3 in our industry. And thanks to the merger, we are present in many more countries. We are in the digital world also. We have a lot of products to develop. So it's exciting because we have a lot of opportunities. And so it's really growing and helping the company to grow, having, better salespeople, better skills in selling, and, so that I like more than having to downsize the company every 6 months. That I wouldn't be very good at, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's not really going to get too excited about that as well. Well, look, Pio, you've given us some great actionable advice. So thank you very much for joining us on the show. I know our members will be a lot better off for it. So really appreciate that. Before we part ways, if there's one piece of advice that you could give to the other HR leaders out there that are developing on their journey, what would that be?
I think at the end of the day, and I suppose it's not very revolutionary, but again, it's the importance of developing our managers, our leaders. I think everything at the end of the day boils down to that. We can do a lot of free sushi bars and having a lot of nice activities to engage our employees. Again, if we are not sure that our managers are really behaving properly, a lot of these activities will fail. So it's really the focus, especially on the frontline managers, where really they feel the heat from the bottom and from the top.